Good Wednesday morning. It is April 2nd. You found us here on the 13 News Now Plus at the weather desk. We tackle today's top weather headlines. I'm meteorologist Craig Moeller, and I work at 13 News Now, serving Southeast Virginia, Northeast North Carolina, and really, as we say now, with the ability to reach everybody online, digitally, we're serving the entire country and other parts of the planet as well. So let's talk about our weather headlines. And the big story for today, extreme weather in the Midwest. Dangerous storms are developing. The Central U.S. tornado outbreak is expected later today and tonight. I'm going to show you a lot about this. We're going to talk about areas that have already been hit hard, areas that are going to get hit hard, what these tornado rankings and ratings mean. We're going to break all of that down for you. A lot to cover with this setup that is coming together. Storm Prediction Center has a level 5 threat of severe storms across parts of the country. I will show you that in just a moment. Take a look also. We've got that tree pollen. We have extreme levels back in the 757. Again, that's Southeast Virginia, Hampton Roads, and North Carolina. That pollen is so high right now. We've been keeping a close eye on that, and we'll have more for you coming up on that. And then we're also going to take a look at another warm stretch that will build across the mid-Atlantic region. That's going to be 4 days with temperatures up into the 80s for much of the region. So we've got this warm stretch coming, another cool down into next week, but plenty to break down there. We've got more volcanic activity to talk about and an update on recovery from Hurricane Helene. Last year, some different areas, some roadways opening back up. We'll tell you how folks are recovering. But we're going to start off with the dangerous storms back across the Central U.S. While things are quiet in the mid-Atlantic, you can see these storms are rolling through parts of Missouri and into Oklahoma. You can see that line extending down that way and pushing towards Arkansas. Overnight, it was back to the west of that, back across Kansas, and viewers from across the Midwest sent pictures and videos of the severe weather as it was underway last evening. Take a look at this shot of lightning from afar. This was taken back in Kansas, and you could see the storm as it was moving along. Again, this line barreling through Kansas. They were under tornado watch early this morning. This next one was taken from the roads of Salina, Kansas, after the National Weather Service had issued a tornado watch for that area. Again, that ran through early this morning. You can see the rain just pelting down with heavy lightning, frequent lightning as well. So again, folks there bracing for the severe storms. Now, this ominous picture was taken from the same town. It's a little hard to see, but the storm clouds appear to be forming a funnel there in the background. Can you see it if you look really closely? Dramatic to see that. You start to see that circulation and that funnel coming down. There you can see it a little more clearly. So really impressive, and again, a scary situation overnight tonight. Now, as we take a look here, I want to show you where this is and what's going on. So you see the line of storms extending from the northeast part of Missouri back down through the Branson area and Joplin here in the southwest part of Missouri. It's going to be rolling through that area, and then it runs down through eastern Oklahoma and even to areas just out to the west of Dallas. There are 2 tornado watches that are in place right now. And again, the low-level winds coming up from the south. So you've got these winds from the south. You go up a few thousand feet, and the winds pick up in speed and in direction. There's more of a shift to the west-southwest. So you've got surface winds here. You've got the winds aloft already changing direction. We've got some shear, and that's why they're concerned with rotating cells in these areas that are under watch. Now, we're really just getting started, and you think about this. Temperatures now, we're coming through the overnight and the morning low temperatures. As we get into the daytime heating today, these lines are going to work eastward, and it's going to be this area out to the east of where that line is now that is really going to be primed for the tornadic development. So this is what's happening right now. We've got 2 watches. This one runs through 11 a.m. Eastern. You can see that's 10 a.m. Central, and this one until noon Central. That covers the western parts, southwest Missouri and western Arkansas there. There will be additional watches posted later today, this morning into the afternoon, especially for eastern Missouri, and eventually later this afternoon and into the early evening for these points to the east of that. let me show you what the outlooks look like here from the Storm Prediction Center. Now, I mentioned a lot of times we have these different levels. Essentially, we take a look at 5 different levels with the severe weather outlook. That green level is level 1. That means there could be isolated tornadoes. All right, level 2, the slight risk is shaded in yellow. Typically, when we get a slight risk here in Hampton Roads, we'll see a watch go up. Certainly, when you get into this orange level 3, where there are going to be numerous severe storms, you do have watches and plan on numerous warnings there as well. That covers most of eastern Missouri, from St. Louis down through south central Missouri, back across most of Arkansas and into North Texas, and then all the way up to the lower Great Lakes. But once you go a little farther to the east and down over eastern Arkansas, here you find this level 4 in red, widespread storm. So we go from slight to enhanced to where you really just expect the severe storms. And this area here, level 5, this is what we rarely see. You do get it occasionally, but rarely do you see this level 5 setup from eastern Arkansas through western parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, southern Illinois, and the boot heel of Missouri. That is the high level. They are very widespread severe storms. And unfortunately for residents in this area, not only do they have to worry about the winds, the gusting, damaging winds, large hail, but really the tornado outlook is very, very significant. So you take a look here, and this is the Storm Prediction Center's tornado outlook. Everywhere that you see shaded in brown, there's a 5% chance for a tornado within 25 miles of any given point. You get into this area of yellow, it goes up to 10%, 15% in red, and 30% in this light kind of purple or pinkish purple color. All right. We've got hashtags, significant tornadoes here. The threat is real. And what we are looking at is we expect there will be numerous tornado warnings issued this afternoon, and tornadoes will be developing. There could be multiple long track tornadoes. So what we're talking about here, areas from around Little Rock over to Memphis, up through Paducah. You get into southern Illinois, just south of Carbondale, Cape Girardeau, Missouri, a whole bunch of really wonderful little communities here in southeast Missouri. Part of my wife's family actually from down around Sikeston, Missouri. It's one of those communities down there. Great people. They are all going to have to take this threat of tornadoes very, very seriously. And really, these areas shaded in red, everybody here needs to be prepared for this, even up through St. Louis and back across the southern part of Missouri, back into Arkansas there, and then all the way out through Cincinnati, some of these areas in Kentucky and Ohio. This is a very serious storm system. So we're going to continue to watch this. Jonesboro, Union City, Poplar Bluff. You can see again Memphis. All these areas really under this bullseye for potential tornadoes and maybe some long track tornadoes. Let's talk about this, okay? So we have across the region today, especially this afternoon, numerous tornadoes with multiple long track EF3 or greater tornadoes. When you talk about EF3, EF4, we'll talk about what that really means, but you have to think about this. Long track tornadoes, we're not talking about the little ones that spin up briefly, touch and go. We're talking about the ones that come down, these supercells that rotate, and these monsters can grow EF4, EF5. They get very big, and they stay on the ground for long periods of time. Could be 10, 15, 20 miles, sometimes longer than that. When I was back in St. Louis working at our sister station, KSDK, I was the chief meteorologist there. We had one that moved across southeast Missouri that we tracked all the way through southern Illinois, and it finally lifted into southern Indiana. That's the type of long track tornado that we could see develop later this afternoon, and there could be multiple long track tornadoes. So we've got to watch this area very, very carefully. Now, you hear us talking a lot about the different risks from these storms and the different types of strengths of tornadoes. So it's important you understand what each tornado rating means. Meteorologist Taylor Stephenson breaks it all down.
To rate the strength of a tornado, we use the EF scale. EF stands for Enhanced Fujita, named after Dr. T. Theodore Fujita, the meteorologist who created this method of rating tornadoes. A tornado is ranked on an EF0 to EF5 scale, with EF0 being the weakest tornado and EF5 being the strongest, most violent tornado. We estimate the max wind speeds in relation to how much damage the twister caused. An EF1 tornado can have wind speeds ranging from 86 miles per hour to 110 miles per hour. Again, the Perquimans County tornado had wind speeds of 110 miles per hour. So it was just shy of EF2 status. EF2 tornadoes produce peak winds of 111 miles per hour up to 135 miles per hour. EF1 tornadoes can uproot small trees, knock down power lines, smash windows, and significantly damage roofs. The reason why we saw extensive damage in Woodville is because the tornado tracked through a mobile home park. Trailer homes are much less sturdy than conventional homes because mobile houses are lightweight and built on elevated foundations, making them more susceptible to extreme weather. For 13 News Now, I'm meteorologist Taylor Stephenson.
All right, so we have this tornadic threat, and again, the potential for multiple EF3 or greater tornadoes and long-track tornadoes. It makes folks back in the Central U.S., they need to be on their toes. They need to have mobile devices, phones and tablets charged up and ready to go and be in touch with trusted, credible news outlets and weather sources. So very, very important. Back in St. Louis, KSDK, the NBC affiliate there, fantastic. That was my former station. It's part of our group here at TEGNET, and they have a wonderful staff of meteorologists. We have stations in Louisville and Memphis. Everybody will be working hard to keep all of this updated. With this tornadic threat in the Central U.S., we want to look at a common storm myth that could be putting people in danger. Ann Allred from our sister station in St. Louis verifies if opening your windows can help minimize damage.
Funnel clouds churning in the sky are synonymous with spring storms, and the Verified team is clearing up a dangerous falsehood. We were asked, is it true opening the windows in your house before a tornado will reduce damage by balancing the pressure inside and outside the structure? Our sources, the Missouri Department of Public Safety and the National Weather Service. This myth started from the idea that low pressure from tornadoes causes buildings to explode as the tornado passes overhead. And while tornadoes are intense areas of low pressure, the pressure isn't the problem. Homes are damaged by the extremely strong winds in a tornado, exceeding 200 miles per hour in the most extreme cases. It's the force of the wind and debris slamming into buildings that destroys them. If you open your windows before a tornado, it could make things worse, allowing dangerous winds and blowing rain inside, increasing the risk for damage. We can verify false. Opening windows in your house before a tornado will not reduce damage. I'm Ann Allred, 5 on your side.
All right, and I appreciate Ann's verification on that. We've known that, but it's good to hear when we talk to everybody, all the experts. You don't want to mess with that. All right, we're going to take a look now at what's going on with this line, and we'll time this out and where the threats are. And I will tell you, I've already been in communication this morning with the St. Louis Cardinals. I do the forecasting and make recommendations with their operations department to plan around these storms, what's going on, talk to stadium operations and security so they know you've got 30, 40,000 people coming to a game. You want to make sure everybody's prepared if there is that threat of severe storms. What are you going to do? Are they going to be safe there, and how do they modify their schedules? Well, these are all things that we talk about. Take a look at what's going to happen. As we go through 10:30, and again, this is all local time. This is all East Coast time. So as we look ahead here, this is actually 9:30 in St. Louis. Showers and storms approaching. There could be some severe storms, but I really think things are going to pick up later this afternoon. So once we get to about noon, again, the Cardinals were scheduled to have the first pitch at 12:15. With these storms bearing down, we'll see if they decide to delay the start. They may wait until later this afternoon once the line passes. You can see isolated, very strong cells. These are the types that could be producing tornadoes potentially, and this is around 2 o'clock Central Time. As we go past 3:30, 3:45, again, Central Time, you can see the lines of storms setting up, and some of these could be rotating. We could have some tornado warnings associated with that. You notice St. Louis pretty much in the clear as we go past 4 or 5 o'clock or so in the afternoon. So at some point, they're going to be able to start the game later today. But just as they're on the backside of this and things are looking better, we're going to be watching this area for the strong to severe storms with possible tornadoes, southern Illinois. And here's that area into the boot heel I was just showing you with that highest risk of tornadoes and potential long track tornadoes. Look at these cells popping up here. These are the ones that are so dangerous. This is at 6 o'clock. So you've had the peak heating of the day, 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Eastern. You see these monster cells developing. And this is where folks from eastern Arkansas through the boot heel, around the Memphis area, back up towards Paducah, Kentucky, all the way up through southern Illinois and southern Indiana, they have to watch for these potential tornadoes. This is the area that we're so concerned with as that front gets closer and closer. Again, St. Louis at this point, 7:30, they're in the clear. They're in good shape. Things are looking great across Kansas City, up through Chicago. The line has worked to the east, but this line will be of concern. And heading into the evening, 9 o'clock Central Time, you can see from western parts of Tennessee into Kentucky and back up across Indiana, even into western Ohio, there could be strong to severe storms and more of this heavy activity down to the south of that. The line will continue to work to the east-southeast, and again, those isolated cells, something that local meteorologists throughout this part of the country will need to pay close attention to. So we'll be working, again, with several news stations to keep you updated, and we'll have more information for you over the next day or so on how things play out. And if there are any storm damages, we'll work to bring you information on that. So that's a look ahead at that line. We're going to change gears now and talk about the pollen and what's going on here again locally. If you look outside in Hampton Roads or Northeast North Carolina right now, it's pretty obvious pollen levels are really high. But yesterday, Taylor and I had just kind of mentioned this concept, a pollen bomb. Have you ever really heard of that? Well, meteorologist Taylor Stephenson is back to explain the science behind them and tell us which weather conditions trigger the highest pollen levels.
Virginia Beach takes the #2 spot for the worst Virginia city for pollen sufferers in 2025 and 11th nationally. And this year, places across the Northeast may experience a pollen bomb. A pollen bomb occurs when multiple trees release pollen around the same time, leading to extreme pollen levels. These explosions are usually triggered by the transition from cold winter temperatures to warmer spring conditions. Trees and other plants release pollen very early in the day, between 4 and 6 a.m., so the pollen count spikes during the morning. On dry, warm, and windy days, the pollen spreads easily. Strong winds can also pump in more pollen from other parts of the state or even from a completely different state. So while the rain on Monday night and Tuesday morning helped to lower our pollen count today, expect high to extreme pollen count levels through Friday as the dry weather settles in. For 13 News Now, I'm meteorologist Taylor Stephenson.
All right, Taylor, appreciate that explanation. And you just saw that was medium, that pollen level for yesterday. But Taylor mentioned we were going to see high to extreme tree pollen for the next few days, and that's exactly what we have today. Maple, juniper, and birch, a lot of tree pollen out there. It continues to be a huge deal. And again, we're starting to see more and more accumulations of that pine pollen, some of that kind of greenish, yellow, greenish pollen showing up on the roads and on surfaces like your car. When you go to wash it off, you're like, oh, yeah, I forgot what color the car was because it's been covered with this pollen. That's been the case, and we'll see continued amounts of high tree pollen. You can see we are in the peak of that tree pollen season. I mentioned this yesterday, but I thought I'd mention again. Grass pollen season comes up from mid-May through mid-August. After that, we turn our attention to mold with that peak coming really a little bit, just slightly after the peak of the grass pollen. It slides over a little bit farther in the year, say July through August, typically the peak mold times. And then after that, the weed pollen picks up later in the year. All right, we're going to talk about some cool things happening across the nation. And we want to take you out to Hawaii, where Mount Kilauea is continuing its eruption. This active period really technically began back in December of last year, right before Christmas. But this eruptive episode was particularly exciting. The volcano shot lava up as high as 1,000 feet into the air, according to local geologists. Now, plenty of people came out to see the spectacle, and no residential areas have been threatened. Kilauea is located on the Big Island and is one of the world's most active volcanoes. Just spectacular to check that out. Now, before we get into some of the local forecasting, I want to take you to East Tennessee, one of the areas that was hit so hard by Hurricane Helene last year. In the town of Hartford, Tennessee, small businesses and neighbors are still working to rebuild their lives. Interstate 40 near Hartford was only just reopened a month ago. Some leaders and neighbors say it's a big step towards rebuilding after the floods, but others say it could be the start of a few bumps in the road.
Daniel Jeanette is almost done.
Come May, it's Katie bar the door. We're ready to roll. We're ready to take our 60,000 people down the river and go from there.
He's about to finish rebuilding Smoky Mountain Outdoors, his rafting business along the Pigeon River. He says navigating an altered river has been challenging but successful. I-40 is still being mapped.
If traffic backs up, the semis and GPS will start bringing people down River Road, which is a narrow 2-lane highway, if you even want to call it that.
He says the single lanes of traffic cause buildups that stretch for miles. He believes it's a solvable problem, but with a busy tourism season expected, he says leaders must act quickly.
NCDOT has observed about an average of 19,000 vehicles per day through the Pigeon River Gorge. That's down from the 26,500 prior to Helene.
NCDOT spokesperson David Uchiyama says I-40 is performing well. Uchiyama says the traffic buildups are unfortunate, but also unavoidable in this situation. Drivers now have multiple options after months being confined to long detours.
That was really the last piece of the puzzle to come together in terms of accessibility to the region. Now we are fully open and we can say that we have the infrastructure to support travelers.
Explore Asheville spokesperson Cass Santander says Asheville is experiencing a high demand for hotel rooms. I-40 is likely playing a part. She says all are welcome, however you decide to travel. From Cobb County, I'm Avery Gingerich.
All right, we're going to turn our attention to a weather pattern shift here in the mid-Atlantic. And I mentioned at the start of this edition of the Weather Desk that we are looking at another big warm-up. So as we look forward to summertime, temperatures will regularly get up into the 80s. But this time of year, we should top out in the mid-60s. And you can see as we go through the afternoon here, we're talking low to mid-60s across the region, pretty close to average. Temperatures this morning were a lot cooler than they were 24 hours ago, but afternoon temperatures today will actually be a little bit warmer than what we've been experiencing yesterday afternoon. So kind of an interesting little flip-flop. The big warm-up comes tomorrow, and that's because these southeast winds are going to shift to the south. That's going to drive our temperatures up into the 80s tomorrow afternoon. You can see it's going to be very, very warm. We've got more clouds coming in early Friday and a slight chance for a couple of showers off to the north or west later Friday. I think the better chances for the wet weather will come later into next week. This is a look at the Euro, and again, you can see how that storm system in the Midwest works a little farther to the east. We'll see some more showers kind of filling in Thursday. Keep in mind there's high pressure right here just off the southeast coast. That's going to provide the south winds and the warm up for Hampton Roads, but it's also going to keep this unsettled weather kind of out to the west, and that's going to be an issue back across the Midwest for the next several days. Friday, you see more wet weather there, and that's going to continue into Saturday, while Hampton Roads is going to be in pretty good shape. A chance for a stray shower, mainly to the north on Friday, but Saturday looks good. As we go later Sunday evening into early Monday, that's when we're going to see our chances for rain and a few storms. Now, before that arrives, we are looking at 4 days with temperatures up into the 80s. So coming up tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it will be very, very warm. Look at the next 10 days here. Temps today, mid-60s, and then that run of 80s. It does cool down again behind that front. It'll be much cooler into the middle part of next week. All right, we do have a small craft advisory that'll go up for the Chesapeake Bay. That's going to happen later this afternoon. And you can see the seas generally 3 to 5 feet east of Virginia Beach. Bay waves about 2 to 3 feet. High tide comes up at 103. Afternoon temperatures today will range from around 60 in Virginia Beach, mid-60s Norfolk and Chesapeake, out to the west, upper 60s Franklin and Suffolk. On the peninsula, we're going to find temperatures lower 60s from Hampton to Newport News and Williamsburg, upper 50s to near 60 for the Middle Peninsula and the Eastern Shore here. You can see Cape Charles up through Melfa and Chincoteague, temperatures staying in the 50s. We'll see temperatures a little warmer, low 60s at the Outer Banks, and then upper 60s from Edenton to Ahoskie and Hertford, Elizabeth City around 66. Overnight tonight, skies are going to increase with cloud cover. It won't be as cool as it was early this morning. Lows in the upper 50s. This morning, we were in the 30s and 40s across the area, so it will be a milder overnight. And then tomorrow, the big warm-up. Look for the increasing temperatures as winds pick up from the south, 10 to 15, gusting to 25. Obviously much warmer than what we see today. If you like the warm weather, you're in luck through the weekend. There is that 20% chance for a shower, but generally we're looking at pretty pleasant conditions. As bad as the weather is in the Midwest today, we're going to enjoy here in the Mid-Atlantic much quieter conditions. Our chances for showers and storms when that ridge off the southeast U.S. finally breaks down and slides east, we're going to see our chances showers and storms late Sunday into Monday. At this point, we are not outlooked early by the Storm Prediction Center for anything severe, but chances for the wet weather and maybe a few thunderstorms in the mix. Of course, as we get closer to early next week, we'll be keeping a close eye to things. For today, our eyes are going to be trained on what's going on with that potential for the tornadoes as we go later today and into the afternoon. So our thoughts and prayers with the folks back in the Midwest as we watch this storm system take aim on that region. All right, I want to remind you the best thing you can do to stay in touch with our forecast is downloading the 13 News Now mobile app. Scan that QR code and you'll find our forecasts, our radars, live coverage, everything you need to know right there if you're around Hampton Roads. And again, we've got great links there to other stations as well, our sister stations across the Tegna network, all working together to keep this nation informed of what's going on with the weather. So lots of great stuff there. And you'll find us right here on the 13 News Now Plus app, Monday through Friday around 9 a.m. for each day's top weather headlines. That's going to do it for this one. I'm 13 News Now meteorologist Craig Moeller. Have a great day.